Hello, fellow music nuts. It's me, Cubby, with another personal spin, and today I am ranking the Flower Kings albums. Now, before we start, I'd like to just say there's quite a lot of them, and they're all extremely long. And as always with my rankings, they sort of change depending on the day, I suppose. But this is how I feel about them as we stand. A special honourable mention goes to The Flower King. I wasn't sure if people class it as an album by The Flower Kings or a Royne Stolt solo album, so I decided just for safety not to include it. But if I did include it, it would be somewhere in the middle, I feel. So there we go. There's that one out of the way. Right, onwards. So my least favourite is The Sum of No Evil. This finds the band kind of treading the same old water by this point. They've released by this point quite a lot of albums and they're not really trying anything new. It's a very safe album. It's very by the numbers. And I've just always found it rather unengaging, except for the artwork. And I even while I was listening to them trying to rank them, I found it rather not dull as such. And the music on here is good. It's just very samey. It's got a very syrupy keyboard sound to it. The guitar is very clean, too clean, and the bass is very sort of there, but not really that bassy, but it is. And it's just, I mean, it's well produced, but it's just boring. It's sterile and unimaginative and just dull, really. I've never really enjoyed it. I remember when I put it on, I was really disappointed the first time I heard it as well. But that's okay. Which kind of makes this one make not much sense, because the next one I chose as my least favourite, my next least favourite, is Unfold the Future. Now, it's true, this is probably their most ambitious album and quite possibly the most varied album. But therein lies the problem, because it's 2 discs long. It opens with a 30-minute song and it ends with a 24-minute song. Not only that, but they decided that they would record themselves jamming for a lot of it. So a lot of it is improvised. And for me, it just meanders and doesn't really go anywhere. But it also has a few good tracks on it. Vox Humana, which I quite like. The Navigator, which I quite like. Which, unsurprisingly, are kind of some of the shorter songs. I do like the 30-minute The Truth Will Set You Free, and I do like the fact that, you know, there's so much music on it, and I do get really into it, but I tend to listen to one disc or the other, not both one after the other, because it just gets too long. So it's a good album, it's very ambitious, but when looked at in their collective works, it's one of my least favourite. Now, next up is, I put them on the wrong way, is the Flower Kings Banks of Eden. I actually have this on vinyl, and I have the second disc. It's possibly in here. Oh, it is, look. It's stuck in the bookcase. That's cool. The second disc comes with 4 bonus songs, which is really cool. I took it out of the vinyl release and stuck it in my CD, because I hate those plastic things that you used to get with vinyl releases, record releases, sorry. Again, this one, it's good. Some of the songs are catchy. Numbers is quite catchy. Rising the Imperial is really catchy, actually, but the rest of it, and even that song, you know, the instrumentation, they're not really trying any new sounds. It's kind of like they found their sound and they're just going to stick with it. And that to me is kind of not what prog is about, but maybe for the Flower Kings it is. That's not to say that they're bad albums. They're just, for me, they're just unimaginative in terms of musical texture. They're perfectly well played and everything, but it's kind of the same thing that I can listen to on any of these other albums that I have of theirs that are probably just as good, but I heard them first, so I prefer them type type of situation, really. But yeah, it kind of sounds like I'm slagging the Flower Kings off, and I'm not, because they're actually one of my favourite bands. Next we have Waiting for Miracles, which until this year was actually their newest album, and I only got it this year, and it came out last year. The reason it took me so long was because it was quite expensive, and I was hoping the price would drop a little bit, but it never did, so I thought, screw it, I'll just buy it anyway. It's quite good. It's a little bit different. They've got a couple of new members. Thomas is no longer there, and they've got a new drummer, and they share bass guitar duties with a few people, including Royne. I don't know how you pronounce his name, if it's Royne or Royner or something else. Sorry. His brother plays bass on some of the tracks. It's an interesting album. It's quite good. It might or might not be higher if I'd listened to it a few more times, but I have listened to this less than all their other albums, including their newest one. So there we go. I did listen to it on my epic bike trip though, and again, it's good, but it's just a bit samey, really. They don't, within each song, they don't, between each songs, like every song's got the same set sounds for the large part, and it just gets a bit samey, especially when it's that long. I'd like to see the band really experiment with sound textures rather than just writing new songs, because that's what would push them, I think. Stolt's got a really nice guitar sound, and it is a really nice guitar sound, but when you hear it on every single album, it's like, come on, man, play with the sound a bit more. I mean, he's a fabulous guitarist, but I just wish... And the other thing I wish they'd do is change the tempo. A lot of the songs tend to be sort of a ploddy, not ploddy, but very mid-paced. They don't play anything really fast. The tempo they have is like slower. So there we go. As you can tell, these 4 albums are not particularly wonderful. They're my least favourite. Next we have Adam and Eve. Now this was actually lower until the other day, and I put it on and I went to sleep listening to it, and I was like, ooh, this is actually really good. And I sort of went, I don't remember it being this good the last couple of times I listened to it, but when you listen to their whole discography, this one stands out a bit more, because although the songs I feel are a bit weaker, they try new textures within their songs. They've got acoustic guitars and things like that within their sound. There's some rougher, different keyboard sounds and things like that. And it just makes the music more interesting when you play with the tones of things, and they've stopped doing that. Although not in their newest album, but we'll get to. Next we have Retropolis, their second album. I really like this. This is a good fun album. It's very fun. It's got a sort of a more old school symphonic proggy type sound to it. It opens with the sound of pinball, if I remember. Not pinball, ping pong, which I think is hilarious. But I really like the front cover. I think it's a concept album, but I'm not really sure. There's some good songs on this. Rhythm of the Sea I really like. Retropolis, the title track, is really good. Silent Sorrow is also really good. And overall it's just a really good album, and quite refreshing, especially for the time. It was released in 1996. Sorry if I itch my nose. I have a bit of a itchy nose. Next we have their debut / second album, depending on how you consider the album, called The Flower King. This is a cool one. Again, you find them playing with textures. They obviously haven't found the sounds they like yet, and that's wonderful. It actually makes for a much more engaging listen because of things like that. And yes, I know bands have their sounds and things like that, but when they are a prog rock band particularly, but really any band, once they find that sound, if they stop playing with it, they become less engaging, I find. Not always. There are some good songs on those other albums, but quite often, after a couple of albums, if you don't change things up, you tend to get a bit stale. Anyway, this is a pretty good one as well. Next up, we have Flower Power. This is a cool album. It has a 59-minute song on it, which is pretty cool. It also has IKEA by Night, which is basically someone dropping a snare drum, and that's it. It's hilarious. Then you have the second, even longer disc. Now, this is not the problem with the Flower Kings albums, but it's one of those you've got to really, really want to listen to the whole thing, really, in order for it to really, they're not sort of a casual listen band, really. But I like this one, although it doesn't really have a theme throughout the whole thing. I've never found, except for the really long song, which is pretty much the same length as an album anyway. So, yeah. Next, we have, I always forget the name of this one, Desolation Rose. It's never on here. Oh, here you go, it's on the back. It doesn't say it on the front, it says it on the back. How unusual is that? Desolation Rose is a cool one, and this comes with a bonus disc too. It's actually one of their shorter albums, and it's also quite catchy. There's a lot of catchy vocals on it, and it's one of their later albums where they try new sounds, new keyboard sounds specifically, and things like that. I've always found this one quite. I think I've got this on vinyl as well. I can't remember. Fancy that. I found this one really engaging when I got it as well. When I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, this is quite good. This is lots of new sounds." Tower One's good. White Tuxedos is good, and I think it's Last Carnival is also really good. The second disc is also really good as well. But this is definitely a good one. Next up, even better than that one, is their newest album, Island, which only came out about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now. It's really good. They have said in the liner notes in the booklet that it's actually designed to be listened to as one entire song, or you can listen to it in the separate bits. All the songs are generally shorter than they normally are on most Flower Kings albums, which is kind of refreshing. It's got some really good Roger Dean artwork, and it sees the band playing with their sound, which is why it's ranked so high. It immediately pricked my ears up because I went, oh, this isn't the same as the last 3 or 4 albums that they've done. This is different. And it is. There's lots of stuff going on. It's exciting. It's fun. It's just a really good album. Really good. And it may even go higher up the list after a year or 2 of listening to it. But as it stands, this is where it is in my ranking at the moment. Which songs do I like? Telescope. Black Swan's good. Morning News is good. That's an acoustic song. I haven't listened to it for a couple of weeks because I've been doing other things. Tangerine is also good. Plus it's called Tangerine. And it's just a great album. I highly recommend it. Coming up to the top 4 now. Next we have The Rainmaker. This is probably their least proggy and more sort of straight rocky album. That's not to say that there isn't any prog or anything. There are still some very long songs in it. Last Minute on Earth being one of them. But I find that they're more straightforward and they sort of come off as more sort of set pieces rather than lots of noodling and twiddling and things like that. My favourite song on here is Sword of God. I think it's Sword of God anyway, because it's got a really heavy guitar. Well, for Flower Kings it's really heavy, and also Serious Dreamers is a really good ending track at nearly 9 minutes long. But generally the whole thing is really good and catchy, although apparently it's not that popular with other Flower Kings fans. I can see why. It's very different to the rest of their stuff and it kind of does stand out a bit. But that's kind of why I like it, because that's what they should be doing. Right, next up. Oh, I've put these in the wrong order. Let me just flip them round. Next up is Space Revolver. Now this is largely because it's got a song on it called Rumble Fish Twist, but also because it's a really good album and it's a single disc. The whole album is sandwiched between a 2-part thingy called I Am the Sun, which is also really good, Chicken Farmer song is also rather enjoyable, and basically the whole thing is pretty good. It's one of my favourites. I definitely come back to that one on a regular basis, at least a couple of times a year, bearing in mind I have almost 4,000, maybe more albums in my collection, so, you know. And this half the reason I started this YouTube channel was so that I could engage more fully in my collection. God, well, there we go. Next we come to the top 2. So, in number 2 is Paradox Hotel, which is a double album, but it's also possibly one of their most accessible records. It's filled with quite a lot of how can I put this? There's more of an emphasis on songwriting rather than twiddling and noodling and making things really complicated. Not that the Flower Kings do that deliberately. They're pretty good at doing it naturally. But on this one, they seem to have not dumbed things down, but it's more not fun. Well, yeah, it is fun, but it's more accessible. It's a little bit more basic in terms of stuff. They've written complex songs and then made them sound a bit more simple. It doesn't mean it's not without its long songs. The opening track, if you don't include the little weird intro, is 22 minutes long. But you've got really cool songs like Jealousy, which is a little piano ballad. Hit Me With a Hit, which has got the most awesome bass line ever. Let Me Just Look. Bavarian Skies is good. Mummy Leave the Light On is another little ballady thing. Minor Giant Steps is a great one with those vocal harmonies. Minor Giant Steps. What If God Is Alone is also really good. Blue Planet. Paradox Hotel is a great song. Yeah, it's a really good album. Really good. Double discer. Look. Double disc. I love it. And most of these are now available in box sets, I believe, but I bought them all before then, so. Next we come to my favourite album, another double album. Flower Kings might possibly be the band with the most double albums in history, I don't know. This one's really good. I have this on record as well. What I like about it is very complex, but there's the finale, Stardust We Are, the song. Throughout the album they hint at the musical motif that's in it all the way through the album, so you get little glimpses of it all the way through the album, and that for me is just really cool. Plus there's a lot of songs on here that are really good. In the Eyes of the World is great. I'm a clown in the eyes of the world. Church of Your Heart is good. It's really soaring, that one. What else we got? Pipes of Peace is also good. And then the title track, Stardust We Are, which is 25 minutes long, is just so good. So good. I love it. So there we go. That is my Flower Kings ranking. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe. I have a major project coming up, which I shall announce very soon. Coming up, I also will be ranking Annihilator's albums, Marilyn Manson, Static X, Mudvayne, Bullet Bomb Valentine, Trivium, A7X, all sorts of stuff I've got to rank, and I will be reviewing the albums in more detail further down the line as well. So there we go. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy my videos, and I shall see you again soon. Goodbye.